Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025, and they're destroying our courts. In the United Kingdom, they're taking away trial by jury, and they're doing this because there's a huge backlog, and they want to get through the backlog really fast. And so the justification is we have to remove trial by jury. Trial by jury represents less than 1% of cases in the United Kingdom at this point in time. But the justification is we have to fast track this in order to have our courts back in line, back in working order. But they don't want the courts in working order. They want to release criminals and arrest wrong think proponents, anybody who's not buying into the government bullshit of the day, from COVID to everything else. And so that's what they're doing. And it's an attack on the courts while they claim that they're trying to streamline and fix this problem that they themselves created. And so it's very, very concerning what's going on, because we're seeing that in Canada as well. What's going on is the Jordan rules are causing lots of murders, sexual assault cases, and a whole bunch of other cases, up to 10,000 cases, to be not looked at all because of the speed of the the ability of the court to see the case in a proper amount of time. And because of that, they're releasing everybody. And so different mechanisms, different ways to destroy these institutions, but the institutions are destroyed and then they may as well not exist. And that's what's going on. That's what we're witnessing. They're not coming at it from 1,000 cuts. They're taking out things that somebody's calling me. They're taking out things that will completely collapse the system because people will just stop using it because it's not reliable. Does that make sense? So it'll just destroy it. Algoma steel layoffs, that's a huge story. We're going to start there, but it's not just there that we're going to start. It's widespread economic destruction. And it's not just Algoma steel. It's cars, auto industry, and all sorts. And the Liberals don't care. They say stop whining. So that's pretty wild. $6 billion for safe entry. The United Kingdom has to join the EU zone, and they don't want to join the EU zone because the entry fees are too high. When asked about the entry fees for Canada joining the same safe EU zone, the minister in charge, McGuinty, pivots and he doesn't want to answer the question. He says, "Well, the good news though, we're in the tent." Bullshit. Cabinet shuffle as well. You'd think it'd be big news, but not really. Nothing happened other than Mark Miller got back in the cabinet. So very, very small cabinet things. Some people are saying there's a big win because there's a Liberal who is skeptical of the COVID policies. It's not a big win. These are globalists. All of them are working against Canada. We're being played. Lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Mark Nixon says hopefully the workers at Algoma Steel didn't vote Liberal because 1,000 layoff notices just went out. That's 1 in 3 jobs gone overnight. Liberal response, thoughts and prayers. So really, genuinely, that's what Mel Jolie says. Here's that interaction.
Mr. Speaker, today Algoma announced it's laying off 1,000 steel workers, nearly a third of its workforce in the Sioux. Our thoughts are with them. The Prime Minister looked them in the eye and promised he would protect their jobs, that he would negotiate a win, and I quote, have a deal by July 21st, but it was a bait and switch that is costing people their livelihoods. On top of that, Liberals are hammering the steel mill with a higher industrial carbon tax. Isn't it bad enough that the Prime Minister broke his promise on trade? Why is he going ahead with an industrial carbon tax that will kill even more steel jobs?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, our thoughts are with the workers affected by the unjustified and unjustifiable tariffs imposed by the White House, and we'll continue to work with them as Algoma Steel is going through a difficult situation, to say the least. Mr. Speaker, my team and I have been in contact with Algoma's leadership team. We absolutely have every confidence in the Algoma workers as they're going through this hardship, and we will make sure that we support them as they're developing new products and also accessing new markets. We'll fight for these jobs, Mr. Speaker.
They gave Algoma Steel $500 billion 2 weeks ago or something like that. And there's tweets about this. There's tabs about this. We're going to talk about this in more detail. But fundamentally, Algoma took a bunch of money and still laid off a bunch of people anyway. And how does that work? Why did we give them a bunch of money if they were going to lay off people anyway? Here's National Post in the face of all of this economic destruction saying everything's fine. Don't worry about it. U.S. companies are moving to Canada. Will there be others? companies are choosing, this is the tweet they put out, companies are choosing to leave the United States for a new home north of the border thanks to changes in trading policies, immigration practices, and even energy regulations under the Trump administration. Algoma is having huge, massive layoffs, and we've got potash and fertilizer companies who can't do business in Canada because Canada doesn't take their business seriously, I guess. So they're leaving. Isn't that wild? Here's Andrew Lawton. He says, when General Motors announced that the Cami shut down and laid off 1,200 workers, Mel Joly demanded a full update. And there is no full update, right? So she says, quit whining. So when will she tell them to quit whining about the Algoma steelworkers layoffs?
The honourable member for Elgin St. Thomas.
When GM shut down the Cami plant and laid off 1,200 workers, the industry minister claimed she was on it. She said she was demanding a full update from GM within 15 days and that she would offer transparency to Canadians. That was 39 days ago. No clarity, no plan, no relief for auto workers in Elgin, St. Thomas, and London, who this Liberal government told they would have their backs. When the Prime Minister was asked about standing up for Canadian jobs, he said, who cares? My question is to the Industry Minister. Does she?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, we are all very much aware that the auto workers are affected by the unjustifiable and unjustified American tariffs. And that is why we've been supporting all of them, working with Unifor, working with Lana Pine, who's on speed dial, and to whom which I speak pretty much every day. That being said, we'll continue to fight against Stellantis to make sure that they bring back their operation at Brampton. We'll make sure that we work with GM at the Cami plant in Ingersoll because we think that there's a path towards a good news story.
We believe there's a path towards a good news story. Oh, great. Can't wait for that good news story any day now. Michelle Rempel says, on questions from Kelly McCauley about job losses in the auto sector, Mel Joly told him to stop whining. Not a good look, Quebec cabinet shuffle today. But nothing really happened. Here's the stop whining, I think, part. Here we go.
Of industry.
Mr. Speaker, not only did the entire team read it, but you know what we read? We read what the Harper government did in 2009 when they bailed out GM and Chrysler at the time. And you know what we saw? We saw that there was no job protection in that deal. And so you know what we'll do now? We'll make sure that we fight for these jobs. We will make sure that we'll put maximum pressure, and they should stop just whining. They should just get on board and make sure we put...
They should stop whining. They should just get on board and something or other. Here is the CN rail yard where new vehicles are staged for dealership delivery. It's empty. There isn't, as far as I can tell, there isn't any cars. Like there's some off in the distance, but is that it? Like that's right. Like I see a white car there, and it looks like cars are lined up there. But you would imagine that this is usually much more. Is it between deliveries? Is there something going on here concerning? The lot is empty from that point on. It seems very, very empty. It's a very big lot, very, very empty. She looks back. There's cars, but not very many. So yeah, I don't know. Very concerning indications across multiple financial sectors. Here is Kirk. He says British Columbia's David Eby is blaming everyone but himself. This is a few days old, but this was posted and I saw it yesterday, so I'm sharing it with you today. And here is Dave Eby blaming Scott Moe for not acting quickly enough and contacting Dave Eby to figure out this potash thing. And I think it might be Dave Eby's fault because he's been pretty clear that he doesn't want any kind of Canadian products or any kind of oil or any kind of gas or any kind of, any kind of anything really. And so I am not on Team Eby here. I think he's probably to blame for most of this.
The Nutrien decision gets me agitated because instead of Premier Scott Moe calling me up, engaging with me about this huge billion-dollar decision about whether to ship potash out of British Columbia or out of Washington State, he was engaging with Danielle Smith on this non-existent pipeline project. I didn't hear from the federal government about the Nutrien decision. I had no idea that there was even a prospect that this company would consider putting themselves in the hands of Donald Trump to have tariffs or ban of potash being shipped out of Washington State.
as soon as a person who is in charge of like a province tips their hand and shows the ideological underpinnings of their whole personality like that, like the TDS underpinnings of their personality, they should be removed from office. Like, this is ridiculous. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that they would move to Donald Trump town, right? Like, I feel like he is not capable of seeing the forest from the trees because all he can see is Orange Man bad. And that's weird because we live in Canada and Carney's destroying the country, not Donald Trump. So Eby is dishonest and worse.
And they made the decision, apparently, to ship out of Washington State instead of out of British Columbia. We should have been talking about their concerns about clogged up rail lines and access to the port. We should have been front of the line advocating with Saskatchewan, with the federal government for resources around rail to deal with that. But instead, it was a huge amount of energy went into this non-existent pipeline project. And my worry is we're taking our eyes off the prize.
Wow. Just dishonest. So like the nutrient jobs leaving the country too, that's a big blow. Here's more. Mike Moffat says new report, Q3 GTA Greater Toronto or Greater Golden Horseshoe report is out and it's bleak. Pre-construction apartment sales are down 89%, ground-oriented pre-sales down 65%, guaranteeing an even deeper downturn in 26 and beyond. So nobody's doing the pre-sales because they can't damn well afford it because money is too expensive, the interest rate's too high, and nobody's gotten a raise because everybody's just barely getting by on the razor's edge, right? And so, Ben says really grim stuff. Too long didn't read. It's already bad, and it's going to get worse. Friend, I wish they were wrong. I hope they're wrong. They're not wrong, though. Here's Roman Babber. He says over 35,000 families fled the GTA last year because they can't afford a home. The industrial carbon tax increases the cost of all building materials. So why do the Liberals make housing even more expensive by increasing the industrial carbon tax? Because they hate us and they hate Canada. And the leadership is trying to bankrupt the country for reasons not yet clear. Although, does Brookfield benefit from the bankrupting of Canada? Because that might be one reason. If that's true, then Angela Lansbury's got all the evidence she needs. Okay, so that's the end of the hour-long murder she wrote. YEG Wave, let's talk about Alberta briefly. YEG Wave says a province-wide petition urging Alberta to remain part of Canada has surpassed the required threshold according to Elections Alberta. The campaign collected over 404,000 verified signatures, exceeding the 294,000 needed in response to calls for an independence referendum. Elections Alberta has sent the policy proposal to the Speaker. With the legislature in session, the Speaker must present it to MLAs, and within 10 sitting days, the government must refer it to Legislative Committee, which will decide whether to issue a report or recommend a province-wide vote. Oh, how much do you want to bet it's going to be a report? We're gonna do a report about this referendum vote. We're going to report on this up and down. Lots of reporting. We're going to report on it. That's all they're going to do. Here's Jason Levine. He says, "Hey, Danielle Smith, if we get a referendum asking for independence, is that a new mandate? Because you said if you got a new mandate, you'd go in that direction." Here's Jason Levine.
Good afternoon, Premier. Jason Levine of The Levine Show. Nice to see you again. Recently, you had a comment on a press conference about independence where you were asked about independence, and you were very clear that your mandate for your election was a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, and you said if there was a referendum, a successful referendum, that may provide you with a new mandate. Yesterday, you saw the reception Jeffrey Rath got. Let's say it was warm, and if there was a successful mandate provided to you, would you follow through with an independent mandate?
Well, I think there's a lot before we would ever get to that. I mean, first of all, Thomas Lukasik started a petition campaign. He got 450,000 signatures or so. They're in the process of validating those signatures, so wait to see the outcome of that. That would be one potential referendum question. I know that Jeffrey Rath's group is in court right now to try to get affirmation on their question. I think they're expecting a result on that by the end of the year, so watching for the result of that. And then if they're able to get signatures, it's a significant number, 177,000. And then if putting it to Albertans, they'd have to get a clear majority on a clear question. Like, there's a lot of barriers. So you might have to ask me if any of those milestones get met. But my job has been, I felt all along, is to give Albertans confidence that the country works again, that we can negotiate with the federal government and get an outcome that benefits us and benefits Canada. And I know there's still a little bit of skepticism, evidently, about whether or not I asked the question yesterday. I think we can be confident that the country works better today than it did 2 days ago. Not everyone in that room agreed with me, but I think more did in the room today. And that's my job, is to make sure that the people see that I'm trying, that we're doing whatever we can to be a partner and to meet the federal government partway. But you need a dancing partner, right? They need to meet us partway too. It's pleased to see on this first step that happened, but there's a lot more to go.
So the question is, if you were given a mandate that said independence was the way to go, would you go in that direction? And she said, there's a lot of barriers, right? And my job is to prove that Canada works. Well, Canada is stealing $30 billion a year for equalization that Alberta just hands over. And if that issue's not fixed, why would Alberta say, okay, well, I guess Canada works. We got a pipeline after all, more money for Ottawa. Doesn't make any sense. You don't need a federal government that's actively trying to sabotage you as a dancing partner, right? You don't want to have somebody who's trying to trip you to be your dancing partner. And Ottawa has been trying to trip us in the West forever, us being the citizenry as well, like not just the West, right? And sometimes Ontario gets goodies or something to that effect, but the goodies being given, a higher minimum wage doesn't do anything. It just does the same thing that it increases inflation. It does the same thing that the COVID payments did. It increases inflation. It sounds really good because people are not educated about money at all. But when you have more money flooding an area and not more products to buy, right? Not an increase in goods, then inflation happens, right? And so holy smokeronis, they use these policies to say, we're going to give you a living wage. They're using it to drive up the cost of living, drive up inflation, drive up everything. The policy should be zero inflation, but I digress. Danielle Smith is an apparatus of the Canadian government. If Alberta wants to leave as a province and become its own independent thing, they should not be relying on the Canadian government in any capacity at all. Not Danielle Smith, not Mark Carney, nobody. They should stand up their own institution to run the referendum. They should stand up their own institution to do the voting, all the rest of it, do it all while Alberta screams and yells, because they'll scream and yell, you can't do this, it's not valid, blah, 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 but do it valid. Make sure it's legally above board, seen by lawyers or whatever you need to do. Make it valid, and then throw the Canadian government out. That's the only thing they'll listen to. They're not going to do what you want them to do, Alberta. And I want you to be successful. So please heed my warnings. Nobody's going to heed my warnings. I'm sorry, but they won't. Stockwell Day says the chances of a pipeline being built from Alberta to the coast of BC may have just bumped up a notch or two, as reported by the CBC and other outlets. The Métis Nation of Alberta said that they will participate as it will bring opportunity to Indigenous people for generations to come. Sure, if they get this pipeline built, that still doesn't solve the theft of $30 billion from Alberta. And I think that the structure of this pipeline is the same as the structure of the 407. And so the 407 was built by Ontarians. All the risk was taken on by Ontarians. As soon as it was built, it was handed over to, or very soon after it was built, it was handed over to an investment arm. And Ontarians have had to pay for access ever since. And is that good? No, it's bad. And we got screwed? Yes. And are we getting screwed in this oil pipeline deal? Yes. Are Albertans getting screwed in this oil pipeline deal? Yes. 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 And is anybody going to do a damn thing about it? Not yet. Not yet, unfortunately. CBC Watcher says, Rob Shaw says, I was struck at just how there's a lot of confusion about the agreement in British Columbia. There's a written one that says there needs to be meaningful engagement with the province. There's a prime minister in the House of Commons saying that there has to be an agreement with the province. And then I talked to the Natural Resources Minister, Tim Hodgson. He did a BC media tour, and he says they're looking for free, prior, and informed consent from First Nations. Rosie, I'm not saying that this is true, but it's possible Ottawa doesn't know what Ottawa is doing. Yes, that's true. Broadly, Ottawa has no idea what it's doing. Marty up north is talking about Danielle Smith, and he says this video is Premier Danielle Smith's entire keynote address to the attendees of the 2025 UCP annual general meeting in Edmonton. This is perhaps the best argument I've ever heard for an independent Alberta. She spent the first 5 minutes talking about how she's exhausting how she's exhaustingly had to fight Ottawa every step of the way. Sure, Trudeau and Guilbeault are gone, and Carney is more moderate because of Trump, but how long before our next battle with Ottawa? Then she spent 25 minutes explaining how we're different than every other province and getting a standing ovation for every example. And again, having standing ovations does not mean she's addressing the issues. It means she's saying things that people like in that room. We don't believe in DEI and wokeism. We're getting ready to introduce a castle doctrine. We believe in private healthcare. We believe in property rights, gun ownership. We believe parents know best what's good for their kids. We believe in educational choices. We think natural gas, oil, and even coal are good. We believe people who come here should just adjust to our way of life and speak English. I don't think that she actually believes that. If Danielle Smith is saying that, I don't think that she actually believes that. She bust in a whole bunch of Islamic people to make sure her leadership went through with high percentage numbers and made a bunch of promises. Okay, anyway, moving on. We believe individuals should be more responsible and less dependent on government. We support firearms and farmers and firearms and entrepreneurs. We'll never get a fair deal in Confederation because the East outnumbers us and they don't share the same values. The proof is in all the standing ovations she got during her speech. So why does she think she can negotiate a more sovereign Alberta and a united Canada? Because that's her job. And her job is to sell it to you. I've got to say goodbye to the stream, but I want to do this series of tabs first, okay? This is the justice delayed is justice denied, and I think that's true. 10,000 Jordan cases thrown out annually as Ottawa and the provinces call on Supreme Court for change. Strict criminal trial deadlines imposed by the Supreme Court of Canada are derailing about 10,000 cases a year, a list that includes several alleged murders and hundreds of alleged sexual assaults, according to the latest Statistics Canada data. The dire situation has led the federal government and the three biggest provinces to call on the Supreme Court to provide some leeway on the time limits called Jordan deadlines in a drug trafficking case to be heard at the top court in Ottawa on Thursday. The federal government is also planning to table legislative changes made by mid-December to help address the problem of so many serious cases being tossed because of delays. For decades, such delays have plagued Canada's justice system. In a landmark decision in a 2016 case called Jordan, the Supreme Court tried to do something about them, citing a pervasive culture of complacency around the issue. So fundamentally, when given an opportunity like this, has the government moved to genuinely fix the problem, or has the government moved to exacerbate the problem in a way that undermines the institution? Because this, to me, doesn't say they're about to fix the courts. This, to me, says they're about to find yet another way to undermine Canadian courts and make it even worse. So what new inventive ways are they going to dream up to release criminals and throw people like me behind bars? I'm interested because we'll wait a week or so to find out, but I guarantee you it's coming. I hope I'm wrong. Okay? Seriously hope I'm wrong. But I think that's what they're doing. So maybe they'll fix the courts. I'll let you know. Well, I'll tell you what they do, and then you can be the decision maker on that, if they fix the courts or not. Robin Minotti here is talking about COVID-19 era lies, basically, and he goes through all the COVID-19 era lies and the fact that there's not been any kind of accountability. And I don't want to play that for you because I'll be taken off in a COVID direction. I don't want to go in the COVID direction. I want to go in the government isn't working for us direction, because they don't. Vincent says, in a political philosophy, so he's responding to Robin Minotti saying, all of these people lied to us. They knew they were lying. They knew they were causing harm, and they covered it up, and nobody's been held accountable. And because nobody's been held accountable, then Vincent says, in political philosophy, the right of revolution is the right of or duty of a people to alter or abolish a government that acts against their common interests or threatens the safety of the people without justifiable cause. This happened in Canada as well. It isn't going away, and the outrage is building. You can't have a first world nation without the rule of law and justice. We either correct the injustice or continue to descend into a nation without transparency or accountability, ruled by criminal cartels using their monopoly on lethal force against anyone who questions the system. That's the truth, and I wish it weren't, but it damn well is. Ireland is standing up, and they're saying absolutely not. Grok says, according to somebody who asked Grok in this thread, that there are no indicators of AI. People were saying this is fake, these are feds, this is AI, this is not happening. Maybe not. I think that if you push people to, and I mean, Ireland specifically has a history of violence in response to government overreach. And so the Republic of Ireland was born from that response, I think. And so, or largely. And so this is not a surprise. If you're surprised by this, you might be even more surprised when stuff like this starts happening more broadly, okay? Because this is the only option left for a reason, because they're going to say this is illegal. It may be illegal, but they're going to say this is illegal and these people need to go to jail. Even if they weren't standing there with weapons, which they're standing there with guns. Guys behind them are standing there with guns. They're wearing black balaclavas. They've got black masks on, and they're saying, we're done. This is done. You're all targets now, and we're gonna take out the trash, essentially. I think this is the next logical step when the government doesn't work for you anymore, and they try and criminalize speech, and they're bringing in an invading army. This is what people will do when there is no solution through peaceful means, through debate or through conversation or anything like that. We are at that point, and people are responding predictably. The problem is our enemies have predicted this too, and they'll use this to justify further crackdowns. Okay, so is this a conflict? Oh yeah. Is this planned, and is this what they were expecting? You better believe it. Yeah. Here we go. This is Ireland. A new group called, and again, take it with a grain of salt. Could be fake. I don't think it's fake. It doesn't seem fake to me. Feds. Do you think it's feds? Could be feds. I think this is the logical outcome of when you tell people you can't say anything about the invasion we're bringing in here using your tax dollars and hotels. If you do, we'll call you racist. And even though it's not illegal to be racist, we'll make it illegal and we'll throw you in jail anyway. You racist. We're talking about the invasion and cultural genocide of the West, and they're saying if you speak up, you're racist. Yo, it's crazy. 27 minutes already? Here we go.
To the people of Newry, Mourne and Down, we, the New Republican Movement, have watched their councillors and MLAs over the past 12 months. The level of disrespect shown to the people who put you into power, this cannot be ignored any longer. We are proud men of Ireland. We are patriots. Your policies and decision-making in regards to flooding our communities with undocumented military-aged men is not acceptable. We will not sit back any longer and watch our culture and religion destroyed by the people we put in power. Also, the sexual indoctrination of our children in schools has not went unnoticed either. The New Republican Movement will take immediate action against anyone who threatens our ways of life and the safety of our women and children. We have your addresses and known your movements. Every one of you are legitimate targets as of today. The New Republican Movement, the 28th of 11/25.
People are not happy, and again, this was predicted, and there will be a response. Jack says Bulgaria's government withdraws controversial budget after major protests. Same thing happening in Bulgaria. I think it's interesting. And again, when given no option, people do predictable things. Bulgaria's government said Tuesday it's withdrawing a controversial budget proposal after protesters against it drew tens of thousands of people and saw clashes between police and protesters. Opposition and business groups have been warned that plans for higher taxes, increased social security contributions, and spending increases could hurt investment and expand the shadow economy as the country prepares to join the Eurozone at the start of the next year. The government first promised to withdraw the draft for thorough revision after protests last week, but later refused to do so, sparking protests at the capital and in Sofia and other major cities Monday night. Organizers said that 50,000 people attended the protest in Sofia. The protest in Sofia, which was dominated by young people, was largely peaceful, but it was followed by violent clashes. And again, typical MO. Here is Cheese Cracker, and they say our leaders, this is a meme, and it says our leaders aren't stupid and they're not incompetent. They're traitors. You know that, right? Yes, I do. I am very well aware. And with that, I've got to say goodbye to the stream. And if you want the rest of the show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. And